Howdy, howdy, lads, MBs, and lasses. If you live in the Harris Branch neighborhood in Austin, Texas, my name's Anthony, and I'm your neighbor. This is going to be a quick video for the Harris Branch residential HOA meeting for the month of April. I hope everybody had a great spring equinox, or i.e. Easter celebration. And without further ado, let's get into this agenda. All right, as you can see, the Harris Branch Residential HOA meeting happens on the third Thursday of every month. You are always welcome to join and listen or voice your opinion in it. This meeting, we had a full quorum. All of the members were present. They delved right into number 6, Community Manager Report by Raquel Prado, who is our Goodwin property manager. She mentioned that there was some pool furniture that needed to be cleaned, as well as some of the pool decking that has been requested to be done by UNRU. Moving on to number 7, the committee reports, the neighborhood representatives. That's run by Gary Belcher, no longer Mike McLaughlin. Gary had mentioned that the community reps were quite pleased and thankful for the Easter event that happened over the weekend at the community center. And we'll jump right into Mike's president's report. He had talked about in the past we've had bouncy houses and horses that have come out each Easter celebration for the kids to ride and, bounce around in the houses. However, due to COVID in the last couple of years, they had to cancel. We prepaid for those years, so they are still on the list to come out and perform for future events. So they weren't able to make it this year, according to Mike. He explained that Raquel was able to get together some face painters. She was also able to find some baby goats to show up to the event. We had Sunscapes, who is our landscaping company that handles all the master and residential HOA landscaping that you see around the neighborhood. They were able to put together a package of hot dogs and fruit cups. According to those who attended, it went quite swimmingly as far as the effort that Sunscapes put in. That ended up only costing $1,100, so that's pretty good compared to previous years. I believe Raquel was even additionally able to find bounce houses, not the original ones that we normally book, but new ones to come out with the event as well. Moving on, number B, Fence Committee. I believe there has been a request to Sunscapes to have them adjust the sprinkler heads. That's been an issue that the fence committee noticed, is that the way the sprinkler heads are hitting the fence, it's leaving markings, kind of taking off the stain, making the fences look less than ideal. So that's something that Sunscape's going to have to go out and adjust each one of those sprinkler heads. We move on here to the ACC, the Architectural Change Committee. Raquel, the community manager, mentioned that 13 apps were for sheds, and I believe most of those were approved. Additionally, David, the VP, mentioned that the ACC has approved additional colors for shingles for roof replacements. That ended up being a major issue after the previous hailstorms because of the supply and demand for replacement roofs. That's been expanded to allow other colors that normally weren't approved, so that way people can get their roofs replaced. And we'll move into the Amenity Center expansion. This is still pending, as usual. They are waiting right now for cleaning and occupancy approval from the city of Austin. And then June is when they're hoping to have a grand opening. Hopefully they'll have some vendors out there. People can show up and there'll be food and festivities, things of that nature. It has been a long journey. That Amenity Center was started years before I even was on the board, and the construction of it has been going on for 3 years. You can imagine in Austin, a hotbed for construction. It was hard enough to find someone who was willing to build it, and it's been an even longer journey with the pandemic, and then you throw on the economic crisis and the supply shortages, and that has dragged this baby out for quite a while. So it'll be a sigh of relief for the board as well as the community once that's finished. Currently, there are some issues going on with that building. There's still $50,000 to $60,000 owed on it to the builder. The community/HOA board brought in a designer, that I believe Place Design, to be the mitigator or arbitrator in the construction process. There was a bullet list of items that the board went through and wanted fixed. The builder has kind of started, dragging their feet on it, and we are sort of at that spot where it's going to end up either we're just going to fix it on our own or we're going to have to go through legal hoops, and that is still pending. I know that the board isn't too happy with it. anyone who has put their time and effort into this project is not excited about these small little things just needing to be buttoned up that the builder is now holding up. All right, number E here, communications. Nothing new there. Moving on to 8, old business. A here, lights for Meadowview. The proposal has been in from multiple companies to install them. The wait now is on which one they want to go with as far as the board approving which company they want to install those lights for the monuments. I here, tennis courts locks, community manager will oversee completion. The gate's up and installed. Proposal for locks is still pending, and Raquel is working on getting ETAs for that. Double I here, community manager and Goodwin will review viability of Viking continuing as a preferred vendor for fencing. This has been an issue that's cropped up recently. Viking has been a great vendor in the past for the HOA. However, their quality has fallen off as they've moved away from residential and more into commercial spaces. I believe they are currently looking at a company called Black Bell Construction. All right, B here, the Texas Corps of Conservation, Aquatic Features, Giant Cane, and Gilliland Creek. I spoke about this on a previous video and shared a picture of what this looks like. We are at the last leg of this. We are working with the city of Austin, Keep Austin Beautiful, and Tree Folks on the Gilliland Creek, a creek I adopted probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. And the giant cane's an invasive species, and it requires the process of manually going in, cutting it down, removing it, and then applying a glyphosate to that cut stem so that way the poison will make it into the rhizomes and finally kill that plant. The purpose of this is because if you allow that plant to continue, it will become a monoculture, i.e. only one species of plant, and it will completely block out everything along that creek, and that will create a lot of problems if a disease that is specific to that plant rolls through. So that's been a project I've been working on to increase the health of the Gilliland Creek. We're almost there. We should see this one wrapped up within the next couple months. This one over here kind of got wrapped up into B. Sometimes there's some typos on these agendas as well as the minute. The easement sale, we had a sale of a easement along Harris Branch Parkway. This was mainly facilitated through the master. Essentially, the city of Austin is requiring a developer to install a larger wastewater line. For a lot of that development you're seeing along Palmer, this moves it to a 24-inch pipe, which is significantly more in the movement of wastewater to the facility in the Harris Branch area. That was proposed, approved, completed. However, now they need to install 24-inch pipe all the way up into the wastewater facility. The areas that will be impacted are all just fields. They're kind of close to the dog park. You've probably already seen the clearing that they've done over on Harris Branch Parkway next to that retaining pond or floodplain pond. And so that's been approved by both the residential and the master. They're going to go ahead with that, and the company will be paying out to both Harris Branch residential and master I believe it's $10,000 each, a total of $20,000. C, the property manager welcoming program and orientation process. Nothing to say there until Raquel is in the building. D, the covered bicycle rack requirement pending final inspection for occupancy. This has been something that's kind of been contested by some members on the board. I kind of led the drive to make sure we still get a covered bicycle rack out there, as well as a better rack than the one we currently have. And the president asked me to work on looking for proposals on how much that would cost to have completed. So I've been in the process of finding that out. E, the smaller lace bark elms along west side of Harris Branch Parkway need a proposal from Sunscapes. That still is awaiting the completion of the proposal, and as well as once they approve it, they'll go take those out. There's mulch, sprinklers, a bunch of stuff they're supposed to be doing along those areas where the trees, the lace bark elms, which are non-native invasives, died in the winter storm Uri. Number F here, currently 3 are on the ACC and we are allowed. So currently there are community members who've submitted their application. However, the board is wanting to standardize that application, and I believe they're still working on deciding who the final 2 will be that get added to make the total 5 members of the ACC board. Fence committee, multi-step plan for fence cleaning and staining. This got approved. I believe there was a 10% increase. I talked about the cost of a lot of these. I believe each section was close to $25,000 each, and there was 4 or 5 sections. You can go back to the January or the February video and see more in depth on where those projects will be, but there was a 10% increase on each one of those projects. So we're spending a lot of money on fences. Moving on to H here, Sterling Bridge fencing panels for 7 sections of the cast concrete fence have been manufactured. Our queue installation date for installation is scheduled for the end of February, early March. I believe here on H, that has all been repaired and is good to go. So you'll see that drop from next month's agenda. The pool fence repairs are moving forward as warranty repairs subsequent to Viking fence leadership determining that fence panels, posts, and concrete footers need to be replaced. Warranty work in progress. One slope panel was used, but not consistent with fence panels. Install community manager will continue to monitor. And looking here, that was still in process. I'm not seeing any notes here from the community manager. Jay, we are waiting for a warranty light. That is for the amenity center pond. It had been tripped by a circuit, and it was luckily under warranty, so that'll be replaced free of charge, and there's a pump they are working to have replaced out there as well. K, effort to obtain a streetlight map from City of Austin, Bluebonnet, PEC ongoing. Community manager will continue with effort with COA and Bluebonnet. Essentially, this is sort of dead on arrival, sort of what I expected, but the City of Austin does not have a map of the street lamps, and neither does Bluebonnet. And so the recommendation, as always, is to call 311 for any lights that are out that you feel need to be turned back on. As I mentioned previously, there are many neighbors in the neighborhood who are part of the Dark Skies project. You will notice that they have red lights on at night instead of bright white or yellow lights. This is for the wildlife and to reduce light pollution in the area. Helps you see the Milky Way, better for everything in general. And if you're worried about security, we always recommend motion lights, not simply just lighting up everybody's front yard with bright white lights. L, we've got the amenity center rental. That's going to be a discussion that won't happen until the building is complete. M, the amenity center trash area fence repair is partially complete, not to satisfaction. This is the gate around the dumpster. I believe the gate is secured. However, they're wanting to do larger stakes and holes in the ground, essentially because if the gentleman or they're wanting to do larger stakes in the ground simply to ensure safety for any of the drivers who pull up and open that gate to empty the dumpster. The gate could fly back if a gust of wind catches it, and because those stakes in the ground are not long enough to secure. So they're still working on that. They're putting in a 3-day ultimatum for Viking to come out and do that. If not, as mentioned earlier, we're looking to move away from Viking due to concerns with quality and workmanship, and they will be reaching out to the Blackwell construction company to get that wrapped up. We've got the fence accidents by cars leaving the roadway. I believe all those have been completed. Nothing further to discuss there. We've got Gary and Mike are meeting with Samsung that will be providing enhancements for the Harris branch. This is in regards to the toxic spill that Samsung did, and you should know about it via KXAN or Nextdoor. It's been covered. It's pretty egregious mistake on Samsung's part, and they are attempting to do some PR as well as some good faith credit for the community, and they have reached out to the board, and they are going to meet with the board and further discuss what exactly the enhancements are. There's mention of kiosks, discussing what it is that they've been doing as far as the enhancements to the area. My understanding is they've removed a lot of trash from the creek that was affected, as well as started raking it to create pools for aquatic wildlife to live in. It'll be interesting to see what they come back with. Definitely will be out at one of the kiosks to see. Sometimes these things tend to get a little greenwashed when it comes to large corporations, but, we'll see. P, we've got A, field fire. That one completed. This was a field fire on a commercial lot that burned some grass and did a little bit of damage to fences. In this situation, those fences belong to the homeowners. The homeowners are responsible for those, and that'll be dropped off from the agenda here. We've got Q, the City of Austin wastewater utility expansion. This is what I mentioned earlier, where they're going to the 24-inch line to help with wastewater from all the new development to get to the station that's actually here in the Harris Branch area. Moving on to number 9. New business. New garage sale sign discussion. They got the new signs. Apparently, the new signs were lackluster, weren't all that, and so they were pretty disappointed with them. They are working on finding a better vendor or communicating with the current vendor a more specific ask on what it is they're looking for as far as the quality, the color, double printed, that stuff. And so a little learning curve, but definitely something that needs to be done. B here, request for HOA to contact TxDOT to increase the time between red-green signal lights. Observed accidents at that intersection suggest motorists are running well into the time a light turns red and oncoming or crossing traffic has a green signal. Community manager will review. This is something that if you actually consider the ask and think about the individuals that are perpetrating this, they're not going to care if the light is longer or shorter. The traffic analysis is done by TxDOT and their traffic controllers. If you see things, simply report it to 311. The more things trend, the more the folks at the city, or at TxDOT in this case, because it's not the city, will be forced to start working on ways to mitigate it. Remember, the HOA board saying something is only one mention, right? If 50 homeowners mention something, that's 50 mentions. So it's always better to go through 311 and get it to trend than it is to go to the board. See, concern about increased peddlers at Parmer. This is a kind of disappointing one. It seems like folks are upset that there are homeless folks or people who are asking for money in the medians on Harris Branch Parkway. Unfortunately, this becomes one of those questions of, as a society, do you bring in police who only just put them back into the loop of incarceration and homelessness, or do you try to mitigate it by petitioning your local representatives to provide housing? And you have to really consider that these are our fellow citizens in this country and not monsters that need to be locked up or pushed away into some other neighborhood. There is a lot of evidence and studies that show these things go away when you give people permanent housing. So if you're not advocating for permanent housing for the homeless, highly recommend you start, because that is how you stop homelessness. D, concern about the increased speeding on Farmhaven. The accident at Farmhaven Land Zone has highlighted the need for replacement of the stop signs, street signs, speed bumps, sort of speed dampening, speed and racing. Community manager will contact APD. This has been something that's been beaten into the ground. Those roads are not going to receive speed reduction devices. One, the speed limits are too high currently to have those. If you put them in, they would be dangerous. Secondly, those roads are traveled by emergency vehicles. So you don't want emergency vehicles running over these speed bumps or being forced to be slowed down when they're on the way to an emergency. Not to mention, you increase the cost of maintenance when you force emergency vehicles to go over speed bumps or speed mitigation devices. So this is just something that is not going to occur. In the future, you might see street lights instead of four-way stop signs. But at this point, the best thing you can do, as mentioned earlier, is to notify 311, get it trending. Maybe they'll come out and set up speed traps with police officers or things of that nature. We all know they got a big enough budget this year and last year to afford to send some cops out here for speeding. All right, 10 the homeowner forum. There wasn't any discussion there. And then we adjourned for the executive session where the board talks about sensitive matters that the HOA members are not privy to. All right, and that'll be a wrap for the Harris Branch Residential HOA meeting for the month of April, the spring equinox, i.e. Easter edition. Hopefully this has been helpful. And as always, if you have any questions, concerns, or suggestions, simply leave a comment below, and I will try my best to address them and get it taken care of, so that way these broadcasts can be more informative or more enjoyable for you and your family. And without anything further to discuss, as always, I'm your neighbor Anthony. Y'all take care.